Hi everyone, Jedediah Thomas here. Today I wanted to talk about what happens when I remove a trauma. Be sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more content on mindset, conscious mind, subconscious mind, limiting beliefs, all that and more. So trauma is an evolutionary response, and I'll make a whole video about that. But basically, when we get traumatized, it creates an imprint in time, and a piece of us gets stuck in that time forever until it's resolved. And basically, um, it's like a piece of you is not yourself, right? It's almost like a dual personality, or a bad energy that's kind of like gotten stuck to you. And what I do is I basically, if you think of, say, like a dam, right, that is holding back a lake full of water, what I do is I just rip out the dam and all of that water starts to flood out, right? So the the first thing that happens when I remove a trauma in a session, you can actually feel it, is the release process begins, right? I rip out the dam, all of that pain, all of that emotion, all of that stuff starts coming out, right? And it can kind of feel, um, you feel lighter immediately, you feel less burdened. It's like a weight has come off that you didn't even know was there, that's been there probably for years or decades. And um, all that just starts to come out immediately after I remove the trauma dam. And over the next, 2 or 3 days, depending on how deeply set the trauma was, how deeply buried it was, how painful it was, how long it's been there, that can take, a couple hours to fully drain out, or it could take 2 or 3 days if it's like a major thing. And traumas can range from, I walked in the classroom and I was laughed at by the other kids when I was in school, or like I was literally beaten or raped or strangled to death, or something, that like your body doesn't make any distinction between them in terms of how it processes them. In terms of trauma, the only difference is kind of how big the trauma is. So the bigger the trauma is, the more pain has to be released, basically. And all of that starts to come out in kind of like a 2 or 3 day period. Now, the next thing that happens is your mind starts to restructure your entire reality based on that pain not being there, right? And so it's funny how your mind works. It kind of says things like, man, if only this one thing in my life hadn't happened, my life would be totally different. And it's true, right? When I remove that trauma, that is literally no longer there anymore, never will affect you again, because all of that pain is drained away. And then basically your mind is like, oh, that thing is not there anymore. Well, now my life is going to be totally different. So it actually rewrites your entire reality over the course of the next 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 days. I don't think it's ever taken longer than a week for my clients, but it starts to change your thinking, starts to change your perception of things. It starts to, you start to feel happier, you start to feel more positive. There's a lot of changes that happen as a result of it, and it all comes back to removing that initial trauma dam. So kind of continuing that analogy, if we think of removing a dam, the first thing that happens is all of the water comes out, right? All of that flood of mud and debris and all that stuff starts to kind of wash downstream. And then the second thing that happens is the ecosystem starts to grow back, right? If you remove that lake that was held back behind the dam, the trees start to grow, grass grows, animals start to come back in, right? And then that takes a little bit longer. That's kind of like that 2 or 3 day process. And then over the course of the next few days, is kind of equivalent to the river kind of correcting course, and then now it's like there was never a dam there to begin with. And it's exactly like how it happens in the mind. Now, I can explain scientifically how trauma works. Like I said, I'll make another video about that. But several of my clients have actually also mentioned that there is a spiritual component to it as well. Now, if you believe in like manifestation, if you believe in like law of attraction and vibration and things like that, I personally do. But none of the work that I do for people is like directly involving that, and it's not explained by that. However, immediately after sessions, some of my clients have reported that that energy that kind of dissipates, that pain that kind of goes away, it's almost like their vibration changes and they start manifesting stuff like crazy. Like people come into their lives, opportunities come into their lives, whether that's, you know, women or business opportunities or whatever, right? Their entire life starts to change. Now, that's a different thing than the rewriting of reality, right? The rewriting of reality is how you operate in reality. It's how you perceive reality. It's how you react and take action in reality. And then there's that other component, which is kind of a spiritual component, which is like things come to you that otherwise wouldn't have. And that's not something that I technically advertise. It's not something that I like promise or anything like that. It's just kind of like a curious side effect of what I do. So it's very possible that what I do does have a spiritual component to it as well, but that's just something like, you know, take that with a grain of salt, take that with your own kind of faith and belief in whatever that is. But everything that I do mechanically in the mind is scientifically based, and I can explain it in science. And so, you know, even if, you know, you're not looking for that kind of thing, even if you're not, you know, if you don't believe in that kind of thing, that's totally fine. That's not what you're here for, right? You're here to heal, and you're here to get rid of all of the pain that's happened to you, all of the trauma that's kept you trapped, that's kept you stuck, and kept you repeating these trauma cycles with your mind trying to resolve that in ineffective ways, right? So I can remove pretty much the most severe trauma in your life in like 5 minutes, right? You know, sometimes it makes like 10 minutes, you know, whatever, but it's very quick, right? It's not something that you need years of therapy for. It's not something that you need hypnosis for. It's not something that you need like all of these complicated, insane coping mechanisms to deal with the pain. We just get rid of the pain very quickly, right? And if there's like a lot of traumas, like if there's 5 or 10 traumas, it takes, you know, 5 minutes per trauma. But the point is like your mind does want to heal, right? It's very much like the body. It's like you take out a splinter and the wound closes over, right? It has a tendency to heal, and the mind is exactly the same way. So I take out the splinter and your mind starts to heal. There's no other modality that I've seen out there that actually removes the splinter, right? Hypnosis kind of like leaves the splinter in there and convinces you that it's less painful than you thought, or you kind of like work around it in some ways. Affirmations are like, well, I'm going to be confident despite this splinter. Therapy is like talking about the splinter, like how does the splinter make you feel? And you're like, oh, dang, it hurts, right? But like nobody pulls out the splinter, but that's exactly what I do. The method I stumbled on from my studies of trying to, you know, fix my own trauma, things that I've been through in my life. And I kind of found the key. I found the answer to resolve it very quickly. 100% success rate so far. I've not had a trauma that I haven't been able to resolve. And I've worked on quite a few people up to this point of traumas ranging from the most mundane imaginable, right? Someone looked at you the wrong way and you got traumatized as a kid, to the most violent, including rape, including physical altercations, including you name it. Like I fixed the entire range of traumas. So this methodology is very powerful. It is very effective. It is very quick. And so all I can say is just try it and see how it goes for you. But yeah, that's kind of like the full range of what happens when I remove the trauma. It's a stored up negative, painful energy, and I just I pull out the plug, and then your mind basically does the rest. So like, I don't technically, quote unquote, heal you. Nobody can heal you. Your mind heals itself. But I just changed a couple of things that need to be changed so that that process can actually take place. And it's a very, very quick. Like I said, as soon as I remove that trauma dam, immediate relief, and then the relief gets even better over the next couple days, and then everything in your life starts to change following that. So stay tuned for more content, mindset, subconscious mind, conscious mind, trauma limiting beliefs, motivation, you name it. We'll be going over that stuff. If there's anything specific you'd like me to talk about, just drop it in the comments and I'll make some videos on it. All right, thank you. I'm back.